This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
OpenAI has released GPT-5, and it's not just going to impact their 700 million weekly active users, but billions of other users across the globe as it starts to roll out to Microsoft Copilot and even Apple's users as well. That is the headlining piece of news in an extremely busy week in the AI world. As someone that does this every single day and recaps the AI news that matters every single Monday, I'd say this has probably been the most consequential week in AI news since December of 2024. So we have a ton to cover, not just GPT-5 and those implications all across the board, but also Google's new impressive Genie 3, and Anthropic picked a pretty bad week to release a new model. All right, we're going to be covering those stories and a whole lot more today on Everyday AI. What's going on, y'all? My name is Jordan Wilson. Welcome to Everyday AI. This is your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter helping everyday business leaders like you and me not just keep up, but how we can get ahead and use all this information, leverage it to grow our companies and our careers. So you could waste hours every single day trying to keep up, or you can read our free daily newsletter. It takes about 6 or 7 minutes every day, or join us on Mondays as we bring you the AI news that matters. All right, there is a ton to get to this week. Let's dive right into it. Hey, live stream audience, thank you for joining. If you're on the podcast, FYI, we always keep put a link to today's episode in our newsletter. We're sharing a couple things on screen, but nothing we can't hopefully accurately convey in the podcast. So thanks for joining us, Michelle on the YouTube machine, and Bronson, Big Bogey Face as well. Thanks for joining us, Giordi and Charles on the LinkedIn machine. Good to see everyone. Happy Monday. Bria joining us from Chicago, holding it down for my hometown. Gerald joining us from San Diego. Robert tuning in from Puerto Rico. Santiago, Chile in the house. Jose, let's get to it. So first and foremost, the biggest AI news, not just of the week, but probably of the year, just because of its huge implications across the workforce. So OpenAI has released GPT-5 as its most capable and fastest model yet. So OpenAI has released GPT-5, a major upgrade that delivers smarter, faster, and more useful AI performance across many tasks. And it's been not all good. There's been quite a few bumps on the road so far, even though it's only been out for about 4 or 5 days. So we're going to have a separate news piece later talking about the bumpy start. But so far and on paper, GPT-5 is stellar. And for whatever reasons, it's a polarizing model. And I think I have some thoughts on that for later. But let's get to the good stuff. So OpenAI says GPT-5 offers significantly improved reasoning and built-in thinking, making it better at complex, multi-step problems that previously required human expertise. So OpenAI says that GPT-5 is faster and more efficient, which should reduce latency for developers and product teams integrating advanced AI apps into their workflows, as well as for everyday users using this new model on the front end, ChatGPT.com. And it has rolled out to both free and paid users. So now if you go to ChatGPT.com and log into your account, even if you have a free account, you will have access to the most powerful and newest model that is it's technically a hybrid model because it uses this auto routing functionality that decides if your query should just be kind of resolved or answered immediately, or if the model should think about it a little bit. So even for free users, now you have a capable model that can switch. So there were quite a few problems with OpenAI's rollout, but one of them was reportedly this model router that is kind of the magic and the secret sauce behind this new GPT-5 architecture was kind of broken or not functioning correctly in the first day or so after release, which led to a lot of kind of negative press. But let's get to a little bit more what's new in GPT-5. So it supports broad multimodal inputs and outputs, enabling richer interactions with text, images, and possibly other media in the future. So right now, no video input, which we had thought that it was going to have, at least when we started hearing the GPT-5 rumors long ago, but no video input or video outputs, unlike what we have in Google Gemini 2.5 Pro. So OpenAI highlighted the improvements in factual accuracy and honesty, aiming to reduce confident but incorrect answers or hallucinations, as we all call them, and to make responses more reliable for real-world decision-making. Also, OpenAI emphasized safety and guardrails, and they built comprehensive mitigations to limit misuse, reduce sycophancy, and refine conversational tone and behavior. So the new GPT-5 update introduces more customization as well, letting users, you can kind of choose different pre-built personalities. There's some small little UI UX things like being able to customize the color of your chats. So I think in some regards, OpenAI has gone a little Apple with this update because, kind of, I don't know. For me personally, I don't think we needed these kind of four personalities that you can chat with or color customization, essentially changing the color of your conversation. So it's not just a bunch of white text blocks. But regardless, for developers, it's huge because GPT-5's API pricing, if you are building on top or if your company is wrapping around OpenAI's technology, it is ridiculously cheap, right? And I think this is really going to put this squeeze on Anthropic and others. So OpenAI notes that applications across code, creative writing, health, and enterprise productivity have improved, which could reshape hiring needs as well by shifting routine expert work toward AI-assisted workflows. So yeah, we're going to have a lot more on this story today. But also, if you do want all of the details, make sure to check out Friday's episode. That's episode 585, when we go over all the benchmarks, all the specs, and also 7 big trends that I think people need to know. So make sure, if you haven't already, go listen to that episode 585 for more info. What do you all think so far on the GPT livestream audience? I'm curious. It's been very polarizing. More on that here. I think our last story for the AI News That Matters roundup today is a little bit more about that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. I was kind of surprised. So CEO Sam Altman put out a bunch of tweets over the weekend. So one of them was talking about just how few people previously, before GPT-5, were using the reasoning models, even plus subscribers. I believe it was only 7. I'd have to double check on that. I'll try to do that live. Yeah, this podcast is unedited, unscripted. So sometimes we take short turns here. So yeah, Sam Altman did put out a tweet over the weekend. He said the percentage of users using reasoning models each day is significantly increasing. He said, for example, for free users, we went from previously less than 1% using reasoning models, even though free users did get a few reasoning queries each day, to 7%. And for plus users, so those are users paying $20, it went from previously only 7% of users using reasoning models to now 24 with this kind of smart auto router. So to me, it's absolutely wild that people that were paying $20 a month, only 7% were using reasoning models, right? I mentioned this last week on the show. I personally don't use GPT-4o or didn't use GPT-4o. I would always use a reasoning model as soon as the day they came out because they're just much better. I think people are impatient. They don't want to wait. Sometimes, using a reasoning model, including GPT-5, especially if you toggle the setting on to use more thinking, essentially, it might take a couple of minutes. But I was kind of honestly flabbergasted by that little stat that said, yeah, only 7% of users are using it. But right now, it's Monday morning. ChatGPT is slammed. It's currently down. So there's some breaking news. It wasn't down 10 minutes ago. All right. Our next piece of AI news. Yeah, a lot of GPT-5. So Microsoft has also rolled out GPT-5 into Copilot, GitHub, and Azure. Microsoft, literally as soon as GPT-5 was announced, did also announce that they rolled out GPT-5 into Copilot, GitHub Copilot, Visual Studio Code, and Azure AI Foundry. And I believe it's in their AI agent builder as well inside Copilot Studio. The single most newsworthy change is that Microsoft is using that real-time router to choose between the best GPT-5 model for each task automatically. So essentially, if you are on a paid plan, you have these different tiers of thinking that you can use. So there's no longer, alphabet model soup inside of ChatGPT where you could choose, previously you could choose GPT 4.0, GPT 4.1, GPT 4.5, O3, O4 mini, O4 mini high, O3 pro, right? So you no longer have these multiple tiers of non-reasoning and reasoning models. You just have GPT-5 with different levels of think, which is essentially spending more time, more compute to deliver a better answer. So Microsoft 365 Copilot users, as long as their IT department enables this, are going to see a huge, probably increase in their outputs as well, which is why I think this GPT-5 is so much bigger than just those 700 million weekly active users, which that number is insanely large, right? ChatGPT has the most active users for any AI chatbot by far. But when it comes to the enterprise, especially here in the US, but I'll say the world runs on Windows, right? The world runs on Microsoft. So the fact that literally you have millions, more than 100 million paid Copilot users in the world, I think was the last number I saw on August 1st. So if you are a paid Copilot organization, which so many are, you should have access to GPT-5 automatically. Also on the front end, so even if you're not a Microsoft 365 organization, you can go on their Copilot.microsoft.com website, essentially accessing Microsoft Copilot online. And there's also a new free smart mode powered by GPT-5. So in instances like literally right now as I'm recording, because I just went to chatgpt.com and it's down, you can go to copilot.microsoft.com. And there, even if you're not a $20 a month Microsoft Copilot user, which is different than the Microsoft 365 enterprise licenses, you can use that free GPT-5 smart mode. So also, like I said, GitHub Copilot and Microsoft's Visual Copilot Studio. In paid plans, we'll get GPT-5 for writing, testing, and deploying code. And Microsoft says the new models from OpenAI excel on longer, more complex coding and end-to-end agentic tasks, and they can be selected as a model picker. In the Azure AI Foundry, it makes all GPT-5 models available for developers. That's pretty big, and uses a model router to pick the optimal model per prompt based on complexity, performance needs, and cost efficiency, enabling mixed model orchestration in production workloads. So yeah, what does this mean? Essentially, whether you're using chatgpt.com, whether your organization is a paid Microsoft Copilot organization, or like thousands of companies, thousands of SaaS products use GPT-5 as well, right? I obviously use a ton of AI tools. And by the time I didn't even notice on Friday, many of them had already ported over to GPT-5. So what this means, aside from if you're a Microsoft heavy organization, is probably just hundreds or thousands of the tools that you use are now going to get smarter. Speaking of getting smarter, could Apple finally get smarter? Well, some reports are saying maybe so, because some new reporting says that OpenAI's new GPT-5 will become available inside Apple Intelligence when iOS 26 is released in early September. So, yeah, maybe Apple will finally, for its billions of devices across the globe, maybe there will actually be something smart or something resembling AI inside of their phones. Apple reportedly said that the GPT-5 integration will roll out with iOS 26, iPad OS 26, and Mac OS Tahoe in early September. You do have to have a newer device for this to run, because it does run on device. Well, some things are still going to be sent to ChatGPT. More on that here in a second. But the biggest immediate change for users is that Apple Intelligence will hand off difficult queries to GPT-5 when Apple's own models that run on device cannot answer them. So more Siri and system prompts may invoke GPT-5 behind the scenes. And on Apple devices, GPT-5 will be used in features beyond just Siri, including Apple's writing tools and their visual intelligence, which is their camera-based assistance. So that's expected to tap GPT-5 for richer responses and image understanding. So this partnership reportedly will give Apple a quicker way to improve on-device intelligence while the company reportedly develops its own AI chatbot. We talked about that last week, but I wouldn't have any faith in that coming anytime in the next couple of years. So pretty important, right? And that's when we say, when we're talking about GPT-5, even though I think it's gotten a mixed reaction so far, because it depends on if you're using the thinking or not. I think if the model auto routes, or if you're not overriding and enabling the thinking by default, you might not be super impressed or super happy with GPT-5's outputs, especially, well, number one, when that model router was broken once it launched, but also if you've been using Gemini 2.5 Pro, which has until GPT-5 overtook it on standard third-party benchmarks on LM Arena. So now GPT-5 is the highest rated model by users and by many third-party benchmarks, including artificial analysis, aside from just the scientific ones. I still think in some instances, you're not going to know the difference, right? And I said this last week. I said that actually OpenAI's open model, which we're going to get to here in a minute, is going to be bigger news ultimately than GPT-5. And, as it turns out, I do think that will hold true, even though GPT-5 is going to bring a higher level of intelligence to billions of users across the globe, just because of, like I said, their partnerships and integration with Microsoft and with Apple. Bad timing for Anthropic. So our next piece of AI news, Anthropic released an update to Claude, rolling out Claude Opus 4.1, what they're calling an incremental update focused on improving agentic tasks, real-world coding, and reasoning. So Anthropic released Opus 4.1 just days before GPT 4.5. So talk about bad timing, or maybe they wanted to slip this one in under the radar with not a lot of fanfare because it was just an incremental update. So on some important benchmarks, I think Anthropic's models have obviously found their home with software developers, coders, etc., people on the dev side. So Opus 4.1 achieves a 74.5 in software engineering accuracy, up from 72.5 in Claude Opus 4 and 62.3 in Claude Sonnet 3.7. So again, just incremental gains, and maybe that's why Anthropic kind of slipped this one in a busy news week. But the company did highlight improvements in in-depth research, data analysis, detailed tracking, and agentic search, areas that help the new model manage multi-step workflows and code-focused tasks. What we didn't see is a price improvements. It is still just crazily expensive, especially compared to OpenAI's GPT-5 and Google Gemini 2.5 Pro. So Claude Opus 4.1 is available. If you log on to Claude.ai, you can use it inside Claude Code, inside Anthropic's API, and through other partners such as Amazon Bedrock and Google Cloud Vertex AI. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I tried it out, obviously, when it was released. There's some instances, yeah, if you need to code something, build a dashboard. But I'll say for the everyday, the everyday business leader, I don't think you're going to be using Claude 4.1 Opus a ton, especially Anthropic is infamous for their terrible rate limits, even if you are on a paid plan. So their base $20 a month paid plan, you might get, I don't know, especially if you're working with longer context windows, if you're putting in a ton of info. There's been times where I have prompted Claude about 5 times and I hit my rate limit. So on Opus 4.1, I haven't tested it, but assume it's going to be pretty bad if you are really pushing it. So again, I wouldn't get too excited about this unless you are in software development, unless you are coder, development, etc., software engineering, and you have maybe their max plan, that $100 or $200 a month, but they also cut the limits back on that a couple of weeks ago as well. So I'm not sure if anyone's going to really be going wild over Claude Opus 4.1. Seems like bad timing, or maybe that was intentional.
Are you still running in circles trying to figure out how to actually grow your business with AI? Maybe your company has been tinkering with large language models for a year or more, but can't really get traction to find ROI on Gen AI. Hey, this is Jordan Wilson, host of this very podcast. Companies like Adobe, Microsoft, and NVIDIA have partnered with us because they trust our expertise in educating the masses around generative AI to get ahead. And some of the most innovative companies in the country hire us to help with their AI strategy and to train hundreds of their employees on how to use Gen AI. So whether you're looking for ChatGPT training for thousands or just need help building your front-end AI strategy, you can partner with us too, just like some of the biggest companies in the world do. Go to youreverydayai.com/partner to get in contact with our team, or you can just click on the partner section of our website. We'll help you stop running in those AI circles and help get your team ahead and build a straight path to ROI on Gen AI.
All right. Our next piece of AI news, Google launched their new guided learning inside Gemini. So this is a new Gemini experience that uses the Learn LM model trained and multimodal content to help users build understanding step by step rather than just delivering quick answers. So if that sounds kind of familiar, if you're like, wait, I've heard of this. Yeah. So ChatGPT last week released their new study mode, and this is kind of Google's version of that. So the core promise here is to promote active engagements by asking probing, open-ended questions rather than just giving answers. So guided learning inside Google Gemini delivers rich multimodal responses, including images, diagrams, videos, and interactive quizzes designed to teach the process, not just give the final solution. So yeah, obviously a lot of these updates coming before the fall rush of students here in the US going back to college. So obviously with ChatGPT study mode, with GPT-5 being free and pretty good limits on the Plus plan, which are improving. More on that here in a second. Their study mode, and now Google Gemini on their learning offering here inside guided learning. Pretty impressive. All right. So at least in my little bit of testing so far, I seem to like the interactivity and the multimodality of Google's version a little bit more. So, hey, we did do the ChatGPT version of this last week, looking at their new study mode. So if you think we should do the guided learning, let me know. Just maybe leave a comment. Just say guided. I always just like to know what you all want to hear. Maybe we'll put a poll out in the newsletter. If you're listening on Spotify, you can leave a comment on the Spotify episode. I can't reply to them, but just say guided if you care. If not, that's fine. So a little bit more. So Google reports that the capability was developed from years of research and partnerships with external experts and students, and that simple improvements to prompting were insufficient, which prompted the design of LearnLM. So a little bit more for educators, Google created a shareable link for direct use in Google Classroom, positioning guided learning as a classroom partner that supports active, constructive learning rather than replacing instruction. All right, so I love what Google's been doing and OpenAI, just getting more AI into the classroom, because I've talked about this way too much, and I'm not going to go on a little rant here, but students who are graduating in the US over the past 2 years are illy unprepared to go out and make a difference in the work world, because the majority of universities since 2022 have been completely shutting down AI use, not teaching it, not promoting AI literacy. And obviously, every single employer, for the fewer jobs that they are hiring for now, especially on the entry level side, they want people who are AI literate. And that is, for the most part, not students, because all students have been doing inside of ChatGPT or Google Gemini is having it write their papers, and they copy and paste it. And they're not actually learning, for the most part, how to use this technology. So I like the move from both OpenAI with their study mode and guided learning in Gemini to hopefully help make learning a little stickier, and to also, at the same time, show off some capabilities of large language models that copying and pasting your history final 10 minutes before it's due is not going to teach you. All right, our next piece of AI news. And like I said last week, this could ultimately have the biggest long-term ramifications. So OpenAI has released GPT OSS, a new free and powerful open weights model. So there's two different versions, a 20 billion parameter and 120 billion parameter models. These are open source models you can download, so you can run them locally on your machine, cut off the internet. You're not sending any data back to OpenAI. You can fine tune these, or your company can fine tune these, as well as they are Apache 2.0 licensed models. So that means you can commercialize them. You can create literally companies based on this extremely powerful models. And for the most part, I'll say they kind of fell somewhere around a GPT 4.0 level, or maybe an O4 mini level, right? So they're obviously not as powerful as GPT-5 or as powerful as OpenAI's previous best model, their O3 model, but they're fairly powerful, especially for a free open weights, open source model that you can download, fork, and build a company on top of. So according to OpenAI, the smaller 20 billion parameter model scores an 85.3 on the MMLU, which is kind of an old school ACT type test for large language models, putting it in the ballpark of recent GPT-4 level models and demonstrating some real reasoning capabilities. So the Apache 2.0 license allows for unlimited commercial use, fine-tuning, redistribution, and patent protections, meaning that companies can embed, modify, and sell products using the new GPT OSS models without fees or geographic limits. So if you want to run the bigger version, you're probably going to need a supercomputer or like an H100 chip from NVIDIA. But for the most part, if you have a newer laptop, you should be able to run the 20 billion parameter. If you have 16 gigabytes of RAM and a powerful enough GPU, you should be able to literally go download this, run it offline, fine tune it. And this really changes, I think, more than anything else. So not just individually for companies that maybe don't want to keep paying API pricing, right? So you're not going to get state of the art results from GPT OSS. But let's just say that you've been using a model like Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which a lot of companies are still using, or maybe you were previously using GPT 4.0. Right. There's probably some instances that, hey, you might not want to use GPT OSS for everything, but for maybe some of the more basic, less complex, or highly sensitive cases that you might want to use an AI model for, this is a perfect use case. I do know that many companies are going to save millions of dollars a year that they were previously spending, or by getting off a more expensive API provider like Anthropic, right? So yeah, maybe what I know a lot of companies are doing when they roll out API access or they're using an API within their organization, they're just choosing one, right? So yes, it might be worth paying that extra premium price to use Claude's API for some of your people, your software developers. Although I do think GPT-5 is going to be better. There's a reason that Cursor made it the default model inside of its, vibe coding platform. But so many companies are just picking one provider and then rolling that out for their entire organization. So, in this case, GPT OSS is more than capable for some of those more basic things like customer service, writing, using some basic vision tasks. So I do think in the long run, GPT OSS is going to completely shake up the industry because I call them mid-tier. This is going to push mid-tier providers, or those people that aren't like 1A, 1B, like OpenAI and Google. It's going to push everyone else to bring their prices down and to have more capable models. So this is an extremely seismic shift in the future of AI development. I said when I covered this, and if you do want to go listen to this, I suggest you do go listen to episode 584, where we break this down in much more detail. Essentially, OpenAI went scorched earth. So yes, they kind of, I wouldn't say they fumbled the GPT-5 rollout, but they had some mistakes in the rollout. Talk about they had some basic charts that were all wrong, but I'm like, humans hallucinate. Anyways, between GPT-5 making GPT-5 free with some improved limits, more on that here in a minute, and then an open source GPT OSS, this is monumental in terms of what it means for companies that either couldn't afford to have state-of-the-art AI, or for those companies that were probably overpaying and looking for a new partner. So now, I do think this is going to squeeze a lot of those mid-tier. Either it's going to make it better for all of us, or a lot of these companies maybe are just going to go out of business, or they're going to have to actually start charging more for some of their base use cases just to try to make ends meet. All right. Our next piece of AI news, more acronyms from Meta. Can't wait. So, according to the Wall Street Journal, Meta has formed a new team called TBD Lab to lead development of the next version of its Llama large language model. TBD Labs reportedly sits within Meta's MSL, which is Meta's Super Intelligence Labs group. All right, so MSL is kind of the umbrella lab, and the new TBD Lab will be working on the next Meta Llama models, and it was created to coordinate foundation models, fair research, product work, and next generation model development. So the team reportedly includes at least 18 researchers hired from OpenAI, additional hires from Google, and 9 Meta employees moved over from internal infrastructure. Former Scale CEO Alexander Wang will oversee TBD Lab after joining Meta via a $14 billion stake in his former company. In a memo, he said parallel collaborations are already speeding progress. So Meta has been on an aggressive hiring spree since early June, with reports that Mark Zuckerberg personally recruited candidates at his homes in Lake Tahoe and Palo Alto. So, industry-wide competition for AI talent has driven unprecedented competition, with some packages reported already exceeding those of NBA stars. So, yeah, we saw people are getting multiple $100 million comp packages. At least one was reportedly worth more than $1 billion over 4 years. So this is pretty big. So when you see TBD, it's not to be determined. Apparently, this is the new lab that sits under Meta's kind of super intelligence umbrella. So yeah, apparently it just looks like they're not going to have their quote unquote super intelligence team building the Meta models. It's going to be this TBD lab specifically that will be working on what we would assume is going to be Meta Llama 4.5. Woo. So, next piece of AI news, which visually is the most impressive thing I've seen in a very long time. Live stream on it. Did anyone check this out when we shared it in the newsletter last week? Google's Genie 3 is bonkers. All right. So Google DeepMind released their Genie 3 world model, a world model that generates live, open-ended virtual environments, signaling rapid progress toward AI systems that can predict and react like physical reality. So Google says Genie 3 can generate environments on the fly, completely on the fly, from a single text prompt and update them in real time as users interact, a step beyond pre-built game worlds. The model also introduces what they're calling world memory, preserving persistent changes over time. For example, the one that Google Gemini showcased, a painted wall in one room. There's a couple brush strokes. In the demo, they left the room, they came back, and the brush strokes were still there. So world models, if you're like, what the heck are these? Why do they matter? Well, they're designed to reason about physical mechanics. So these are going to help embodied AI, right? When we talk about humanoids, AI robotics, large language models, essentially, they have all their unstructured data and structured data from the internet and from humans, right? It's much slower and a much more time-consuming and costly process for embodied AI or AI that ultimately lives outside in the real world to understand how the real world works. So that's why something like a world model like Genie 3 that has understanding of things like gravity, light, shadows, how two objects, when they run into each other, how they interact. It's actually huge, right? Obviously, there's great applications, right? Like hopefully getting safer autonomous vehicles on the road, video game development, movie development, being able to, scout and understand new locations for, big architecture projects, logistics, etc. So I think there's many far-reaching use cases of a model like Genie 3. OpenAI's Sora previously, so that's their AI video model from OpenAI, showcased physics-aware video generation, and Google's Veo 3 can now generate an 8-second video from a single image, highlighting intensifying competition in AI video and simulation. So that's why there is a strong connection between AI video and obviously these world simulators, and actually the very cool kind of example that we shared in our newsletter last week was someone created a video inside Google Veo, kind of like an overhead drone flight. And then someone that had access to this new Genie 3, which is only trusted tester users right now, so it's not publicly available. They actually took that AI video, put it into Genie 3.0 and took it over from there, and then kind of moved the camera control. So you can kind of pause at any point, point the camera somewhere else, and then go explore. And it generates it in real time, right? So obviously a lot of people, when they think of these world models, they just think, oh, it's for video games, it's for movies, it's for, AI video. And yes, but it also helps embodied AI get much more data on how the real world operates. Because as an example, in Google's Genie 3, right, if someone is walking along a path, there's ripple effects in the water, right? That helps train future models to become better. So, potential use cases include training for dangerous scenarios such as disaster response, where simulated environments could help first responders build skills in muscle memory without real world risk. Also, education sectors could benefit through immersive, interactive visual learning experiences that adapt to student actions, potentially improving retention and engagements. So the debate, though, continues whether these systems actually understand the world. But Google DeepMind defines world models as systems that use their understanding to simulate and predict environments, while experts disagree on whether this counts as true understanding. Regardless, it's really freaking cool. We'll link it again in the newsletter, so make sure you go check it out. We had new updates across all sectors. So we had, GPT-5 and Claude. On the world model side, we had Genie 3, which is pretty huge, and 11 Labs, traditionally known as a text-to-speech platform, just launched an AI music generator. So 11 Labs announced a new AI model that generates music, which they say is cleared for commercial use. Pretty big step there. So the company did share examples, including a synthetic rap track with references like Compton to Cosmos, underscoring cultural concerns about AI mimicking artists who live the experiences that the new AI model imitates. So 11 Labs is moving into a legally complex space as the two big players in the AI music generating scene, which are Suno and Udio, were sued by the recording industry last year over alleged training on copyrighted music and are now reported pursuing licensing deals. Reportedly, Suno and Udio are pursuing licensing deal with major labels. So, to address this, 11 Labs announced licensing agreements with Merlin Network and Cobalt Music Groups, which together represent some major artists and catalogs. So, Cobalt says artists must opt in for AI licensing. So the company's broader push follows its growth from a text-to-speech platform into a conversational bot and multilingual speech translation service, positioning 11 Labs as more of a full-stack audio AI player versus what they've traditionally been known for or known as, which is kind of just a text-to-speech leader. All right. Our last piece of AI news. Yeah, there was some backlash after ChatGPT announced GPT-5. And there's already been some swift actions and updates to the different plans since that backlash. So OpenAI is already saying that they are going to increase ChatGPT plus rate limits for the new GPT-5 thinking model following user criticism. So Sam Altman said on Twitter that rate limits for reasoning are being significantly raised for plus users. Those are people paying $20 a month after essentially, when you broke it down, plus users were actually getting way fewer messages with reasoning, even though only 7% of users were using it. So essentially, when you had 6 or 7 models to choose from, and each of those models had their own rate limit, you just had way more usage ability. So when they kind of consolidated these models and got rid of the old ones, more on that here in a second, essentially usage went down by a lot. So Sam Altman did say that they're trialing, so this is not confirmed, but they're trialing to see if they can make this work, a 3,000 per week message cap on GPT-5 thinking for plus users, which I think would go a long way. And I think very few plus users would go past that. And if so, it's probably time to upgrade to that $200 Pro plan, which has unlimited GPT-5 usage. So the upcoming change follows widespread frustration after GPT-5 launched with only 200 messages per day limits for ChatGPT Plus users, which many said felt like undercutted the value. Also, OpenAI is adding a new user interface indicator to show which model answers a prompt because you don't really know, right? There's kind of this model router working under the hood. So you don't know if you're using the quote unquote normal GPT-5 or if you're using the thinking variation. So that should be cleared up soon, the company said. But I would say the biggest one, it wasn't just the limits in the messages that were the biggest uproar, as some of the loudest complaints online were due to OpenAI pulling access to older models without warning for most users, including the very popular GPT-4o model. So OpenAI initially removed and essentially retired these older models to make way for the new model architecture, with GPT-5 being the main model. But this triggered tons of user complaints online, essentially getting rid of models and not really having a choice. So users criticized GPT-5's more direct tone and writing compared with older models that they no longer had access to, like GPT-4.1, GPT-4.5, and 4.0, and they called GPT-5 shorter and colder. So essentially, here's what was happening. So many people became reliant on GPT-4 for certain things, right? Whether it was actual writing, doing things in their day-to-day job, or companionship, using it as a sounding board, as therapy, right? A lot of people reported using ChatGPT as almost like a therapist when maybe their own therapist wasn't working well or they couldn't afford one. So a lot of people became kind of over-reliant on GPT-4. And Sam Altman actually addressed this on Twitter, and he did say that they're considering keeping GPT-4o and older models available for Plus subscribers. So if you were a Pro subscriber, you did have access to those old models right when GPT-5 rolled out. But if you were a $20 plus or a free user, you did not have access to these older models. So I get where OpenAI and Sam Altman's coming from, right? Everyone's complaining there's too many models, and everyone's been screaming, release GPT-5. So, okay, you release GPT-5, and that is the main only model, but then everyone still wants all the older models anyways, right? Because they almost developed an attachment to them in an unhealthy way. So Sam Altman did on Twitter talk about over the weekend about how some users are forming kind of unhealthy relationships with AI models in general, and that OpenAI will work to protect both user freedom, but also push back in edge cases to avoid harm, dependency on AI, or in instances where it's actually causing long-term harm for users who may struggle to distinguish fiction from reality, right? So essentially, GPT-4 was, number one, it was overly verbose, and they had to, roll it back a couple of times. In one case, or in many cases, right? It essentially just mirrored or became a yes man or yes woman for users. So no matter what kind of idea you threw at it or circumstances, a lot of times it would just side with the user and be like, oh yeah, you were absolutely right, and how you justified that decision at work or in your personal life, where even if that was maybe bad. So I think essentially we have a problem, right? We have a problem, and it actually took GPT-5, which is better, right? It's just better at, strategy, advice, writing in general. So I think a lot of people were becoming over reliant on the kind of, this yes manning of these models that would essentially become a kind of dangerous echo chamber at times if you were using it for those purposes, right? So we'll see what happens, but it does look like, number one, there's going to be more messages across the board. Number two, it looks like OpenAI has fixed the model router, but it actually caused a lot of damage because by them not having that working, a lot of people's first impressions was, well, this isn't that great. It's not working that well, right? So because the model router functionality wasn't working 100% correctly when it was rolled out, a lot of the initial press and reaction from GPT-5 was, oh, it kind of stinks. And the fact that people became over reliant on GPT-4, just kind of always mirroring whatever their assumption or opinion was in cases, maybe using it as a therapist, thought partner, or for companionship. Whereas GPT-5 isn't really like that. It's a little more straightforward, to the point, which I personally enjoy a lot more. Uh, so yeah, Big Bogey here on YouTube saying, if you want a therapist, Copilot has a huge emotional intelligence. All right. Now, quickly, what's new and what's next? So we couldn't fit everything into this update. It's already been 48 minutes, so let's wrap it here. So some bullet points of what's new and what's next. Google, big one, and this is like an hour old, just got rolled out. Google finally released its Ultra plan for business workspace users. It starts at $250 per month per user, but for the first 3 months, there is a promo that it's $106 a month. So this was previously available to Gmail subscribers, right? I'm an Ultra subscriber in my personal Gmail, but didn't have access to it in my workspace or my work account. So this is pretty big. We'll probably be talking about this and maybe having a dedicated episode soon. Google's AI coding agent Jules has exited beta. xAI's Grok Imagine image to video generator was rolled out, and it's already in hot water for some unauthorized explicit images. I think it's terrible. Copilot 3D is rolling out in Microsoft Copilot Labs. Cursor released Cursor CLI, their command line editor, to bring Cursor to terminals. OpenAI's Codex platform got GPT-5 access for paid accounts. Runway has released a faster version of its Gen 4 image model called Turbo. It's also cheaper as well. Perplexity's Comet browser is demoing a Max Assistant option for more complex workflows inside of its agentic browsers. And reports are saying that Anthropic's popular Claude code may be coming to the browser. All right, that's a ton. Let's very quickly recap the big news stories of the week. So first and foremost, OpenAI has launched GPT-5 as its most capable, fastest model yet. Microsoft is rolling out GPT-5 across its ecosystem, as well as reports are saying that Apple will be rolling out GPT-5 in Apple Intelligence in iOS 26 in September. Next, Anthropic launched Claude Opus 4.1 with marginally better coding and reasoning. Bad timing. Google launched guided learning in Gemini to boost better learning just in time for back to school. OpenAI released GPT OSS, a free, powerful, open weights model that you can download and use without the internet, without sending any data back to OpenAI. Meta's, according to the Wall Street Journal, has launched their TBD lab, which sits inside of their MSL and will be working on Meta Llama models in the future. Google DeepMind released Genie 3 world model, extremely impressive. 11 Labs launched commercial use AI music model, and OpenAI has boosted GPT-5 limits after some pretty intense backlash. All right, that was a lot, y'all. There's going to be a lot more. If you haven't already, please make sure to go to youreverydayai.com, sign up for the free daily newsletter. If this was helpful, please let someone know about it. Share this. Post this. If you're listening live on the live stream, please let someone know. If you're listening on the podcast, appreciate your support. Please make sure it takes 10 seconds. Go click that subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you could, take 30 seconds, leave us a rating. That would mean so much to me. I'd appreciate that. Thank you for tuning in. Please join us tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.